because the game is different. Like I want people to understand and our fans to understand that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s. It's just not. The way we play, the level of pace, the level of the speed that we're playing at, it's a different game now. It's a totally different game. And, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because of it. I hope we can get a handle on that as well, because that's big in our game. I think when I first came into to the league, Reese, like some of the biggest concerns of injuries was like, a high ankle sprain. You was afraid to step on somebody's ankle because there was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint.
Yeah, the game definitely has changed. Those brute players that used to be on the floor just for strength and athleticism on the defensive end, those guys are out of here. If they can't shoot, they can't get any burn. In a way, today's NBA game is almost like, I don't want to say soccer, but the way you train your body might be similar due to all the running and just the pace just being so high. The core and the legs are going to have to be more emphasized.
So, guys with athleticism, myself, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, to name a couple guys, sometimes you're afraid to take off into the lane because it was 4 or 5 guys sitting in the paint. If you land on somebody's ankle, you get a high ankle sprain, you out 4 to 6 weeks.
Now you could take off in the paint and there'll probably be no one even there to touch you. Unless you're playing against the Houston Rockets, they're like the only team that's a fucking relic out there. They're playing with 2 bigs. But it's working. There's a method to the madness by Ume Udoka.
Now that's not really much of you don't really see that as much now because the game is so spread open, it's so much pace. But now you see the new high ankle sprain is the calf.
Right.
So, hopefully we could get a handle on that from a medical standpoint. But it's just the game. I just want the fans to understand that the game is a little different. And, as NBA players, we definitely want to be out there as much as possible.
Keep in mind, Tyrese Halliburton in 2024 was up for an extension, but he did have an injury and he further made himself available, risking further damage to his body in order to be eligible for that Supermax contract. So he was put at risk because of this rule. And the NBA behind the scenes is a tricky business because there's a lot of verbiage, there's a lot of marketing put into ways new rules like this are implemented, as it being a team rule could only be voted by the owners. So the NBA Players Union had no say-so on it. Again, these billionaire owners with teams of lawyers, they did not like that player movement from the, I would say, mid-2010s on. And now not only they found a way to make sure that the players are participating in these nationally televised games, they also found a way to not have them qualify for Supermax. But first, before we hear from Tyrese Halliburton and LeBron James on the subject, listen to Adam Silver and the way he framed how they came to the conclusion of the 65-game rule. I'm always saying the NBA is 60% marketing, 30% business, and 10% basketball.
I understand why the rule is in place. Is it time to separate the Supermax from the awards?
My answer is I'm not sure. Tim, as you know, a lot of thought went into the 65-game demarcation. Not only was it collectively bargained with the players, but we spent extensive time leading up to collective bargaining, talking to all the various constituencies in the league, most importantly the coaches or general managers, individual players directly.
Now, Adam Silver right there, his statement was very carefully crafted. A 65-game demarcation instead of just saying rule. So a 65-game limit or just threshold. And the biggest part of the statement, the dundada of it all, is saying that not only this was collectively bargained with the players, which it wasn't, because this rule is a team rule which only NBA owners could vote on. You fellas definitely go ahead and do your research on that. That is 100% fact. They did not need the players' union in order to implement this rule, which ends up affecting players being eligible for certain Supermax contracts. This is where the All-NBA selections come in. If guys are not getting on these All-NBA teams, they are not eligible for that Supermax. And in order to get on those all NBA teams, you have to play more than 65 games. This whole situation right here shows you how weak the NBA Players Union really is. And again, I got to dial this all back in. The NBA is 60% marketing, 30% business, 10% basketball. We're going to hear Adam Silver's response one more time.
I understand why the rule is in place. Is it time to separate the Supermax from the awards?
My answer is I'm not sure. Tim, as you know, a lot of thought went into the 65-game demarcation. Not only was it collectively bargained with the players, but we spent extensive time leading up to collective bargaining, talking to all the various constituencies in the league, most importantly the coaches, the general managers, individual players directly.
Yo, Adam Silver is really good at this because there's a third monkey wrench that he tossed in there. And he loves to do this because he did the same thing for the Steve Ballmer situation. Oh, I spoke to this person, included this, and the NBA has included a third-party company to investigate, and they're going to just go by the decisions of that third party instead of the NBA or Silver himself taking any implications from, sort of a light penalty given to Steve Ballmer. And it's the same thing here. He stated that when it came to the 65-game rule, they spoke to GM, coaches, and player personnel, even though that rule is implemented only by the owners. It doesn't fucking matter who the hell they speak to. If you're not an NBA owner, you can't vote on the rule. The NBA marketing machine is like no other.
Not only was it collectively bargained with the players, but we spent extensive time leading up to collective bargaining, talking to all the various constituencies in the league, most importantly the coaches, the general managers, individual players directly. And as was built into your question, the notion was we needed to further incentivize players, particularly star players, to play more games. So I'm not ready to say that it isn't working so far. I can tell you that the number of games that players have participated in is up this season. And interestingly enough, injuries are actually down. Whether that's meaningful data yet, I don't know. I think the right time to take a further look at this rule is at the end of the season when we see sort of at least have a year under our belt.
All right, so now we're going to hear from one of the players alongside LeBron James that was mainly affected by this 65-game rule. He was put in a position where he had to risk further injury to his body in order to be eligible for that Supermax contract. This is the beautiful thing about today's NBA landscape. You can hear the stories from the players directly themselves. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Sometimes if guys are not able to play, the guys are literally not able to play. It's not like we're like shitting on, national televised games or, whatever the case may be. But I mean, I'm looking at this list right now. We got one of our biggest names, Nikola Jokic. We got Giannis, we got Wembanyama. We got, Steph that missed games, Kawhi that missed games, Sengun, obviously AR, my teammate. Jalen Williams is out again. J-Dub is out again. How do you think that's going to impact, going into, the future? You got guys going to miss all NBA nods because of that. When you can't tell me that Jokic is not all NBA. Now, all of a sudden, because he's missed, 30 games, you can't tell me he's not first team all NBA. This guy's averaging 29, 13, and 14 or some shit like that. So how long do we go with this, and how is it going to affect, not only today's conversation, but also individual guys' legacies? It's a topic of conversation.
Yeah,
I
think that's the biggest thing, bro, is the legacy talk. I think that's the most important. And I think when this was first implemented, I get the idea. We want more guys to play. And I was known as one of the first guys to say I hated it because the year the 65-game rule was implemented was my contract year. I had to play 65 games to make All-NBA to be eligible for the Supermax. And I said that I didn't like it at the time, and I still feel that way. I
definitely don't like it.
Yeah, I've talked with Commissioner Silver, and we talked about how from a financial standpoint, it can only hurt so many people in that year. Guys who are like me at that time. It was me, Ant, and LaMelo at that time that were trying to get that Supermax.
Right there, it's kind of funny that they never mentioned their union reps. That's really who they should take it up with, especially after Adam Silver made those comments saying that They spoke with various players, personnel, and coaches. Again, there's a lot of word salad going on when it comes to this rule. At the end of the day, the owners were the only ones that could vote on it. What fucking loophole allowed them to do that when that rule is tied to players' contracts? I don't know. That's what the players are going to have to find out.
It was me,
Yeah,
Ant, and LaMelo at that time that were trying to get that Supermax. But I think that's the biggest point is legacy talk, because what I think about is in 20, 30 years when I'm not playing and I'm hearing my kids argue about they want to compare eras or something, and they're going over the list of accolades, and they're telling me right now that, this guy might have only made All-NBA so many times, but he was ineligible, and they don't know that, and that could skew it in that way, which I don't necessarily appreciate in any way. But I think it's something that will be adjusted. I think a big reason for that is Wemby. I think for him to not be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, when there's a very good chance that he could win multiple over the course of his career. If knock on wood, I hope that, his injury, future is not consistent with what it's been, but, it's not under his control at all times. It's not under us as players, our control. So I feel like to take that away from him or other guys because of health, I feel like is incorrect. Because I feel like we're saying, NBA players, we want to play. We don't want to sit down. We want to play. So I feel like there has to be a conversation for sure.
Yeah, you said it best. I can't even say it any better than what you just said, Reese. And we just, it's just weird. It will be so weird to see the all NBA teams come out, first team, second team, third team, and Jokic is not on there, or Giannis is not on there, or if my teammate, if Luka happened to miss some time and he's not able to be eligible because he didn't play 65 games to make all NBA, or, like you said, even more important, we're not just talking about legacies for guys of conversation, but also legacies for their families. Like, if you have an opportunity to be in a contract year where you can get the Supermax, or you can get you're eligible for an extra year, and you're playing exceptional basketball, you having a career year, and you play 64 games, that could be catastrophic.
This rule is very clever because you could look at the situation that happened with Jalen Williams out in OKC, the fact that he's dealing with injuries this season and he's not going to make an All-NBA team. That ended up being a lifesaver for the Oklahoma City Thunder because they saved $210 million on that luxury tax bill. The way the contracts now work for J-Dub, instead of being eligible for 30% of the cap, he's locked into only 25%. So he lost out in earning over $50 million, while the franchise saves $210 million of luxury tax. This example right here is a full three-dimensional scope of how the owners have slowly finessed the players' union. The TV revenue has gone up, but at the same time, there's a lot of rules in place to not necessarily pay guys. It's not just the Supermax players. We're seeing the mid-tier B stars like Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, even Norman Powell out in Miami. All these guys have struggled, even though having career years of getting paid hovering around $35 million plus. The NBA players are not only in new territory, they better holler at that union and make sure they're doing their job.
It'd be something that you'd be so pissed off about, at some point, like you said, it'd be a conversation that'd be brought up again, and hopefully we can kind of figure it out and get to a better place about it.